Welcome to World Epic History, where the past comes alive in stories of grandeur and mystery. Today, we delve into one of the most captivating chapters of history, Constantinople, the mighty city that stood as the heart of the Byzantine Empire for over a millennium, holding its position as the Queen of Cities. But before its inevitable fall to the Ottoman forces in 1453, there were whispers, prophecies, omens, and signs that pointed to the city's impending doom. Legends spoke of divine warnings, celestial alignments, and cryptic dreams, all foreshadowing the end of an era. In this episode, we explore these hidden signs and the cryptic prophecies that may have shaped the final moments of Constantinople. Was it fate that sealed the city's destiny, or was it the culmination of centuries of decline, hidden in plain sight? Join us as we uncover the eerie and forgotten prophecies that loomed over Constantinople in its last days. Welcome to the heart of Byzantium, where faith and empire stood as one. For centuries, Constantinople had been the jewel of Christendom, its walls unbroken and its people proud. Yet beneath its golden domes and marble streets, whispers of prophecy haunted its destiny. The city, many believed, had been marked by fate. From the moment Constantine founded his capital, Byzantine legends spoke of signs written in stone, visions of saints, and omens in the skies. These Constantinople prophecies promised both glory and doom, as if the city itself lived under a divine script. Long before the Ottomans marched, the hidden history myths already foretold that the Queen of Cities would one day fall, not by chance, but by prophecy. One of the earliest Byzantine legends spoke of Constantine himself, guided by a vision of the cross in the sky. He believed the city was chosen by God, protected as long as the empire endured in faith. Yet the same prophecy carried a darker edge, that once Constantinople's people turned from virtue, divine protection would wither. Monks wrote of angels withdrawing their shields, leaving the mighty walls exposed. This hidden history myth lingered in sermons and chronicles, warning that spiritual decline would invite disaster. For centuries, citizens prayed in Hagia Sophia, convinced that holiness alone safeguarded the Queen of Cities. But every eclipse, earthquake, or fire felt to many like a reminder that God's favor was not eternal, that the prophecies of Constantinople's fall might one day awaken. The Byzantines told of a prophecy hidden in the foundations of the city itself. Beneath Constantinople's walls, it was said, lay a column inscribed with ancient words predicting the city's fate. According to this legend, the day would come when an enemy bearing the crescent moon would breach the defenses. Generations repeated the myth, believing the walls of Theodosius could never fall unless heaven allowed it. Chroniclers linked the prophecy to eclipses, when the sun and moon clashed in the sky. To the faithful, this was a warning that the empire's strength was only as eternal as God's will. As the centuries passed, each celestial sign renewed fear that the long-dreaded moment might be closer than anyone wished to believe. A haunting prophecy spread among the people, that Constantinople would fall only when the moon turned red. The city's fate seemed tied to the heavens themselves. On May 22, 1453, as the Ottomans tightened their siege, a lunar eclipse bathed the night sky in crimson. Witnesses described terror gripping the city as the blood moon rose above Hagia Sophia. Priests rushed to interpret the sign, declaring it the fulfillment of Byzantine legends. To the defenders, it felt as though destiny had spoken. The hidden history myths were no longer whispers, but unfolding reality. Many believed the city was doomed the moment the moon glowed red, a divine signal that Constantinople's long protection had ended. Another legend foretold that an angel would descend in Constantinople's darkest hour. According to this prophecy, when the Ottomans breached the walls, an angel would hand a sword to a humble man who would drive the invaders away. This tale comforted the desperate defenders in 1453, for they believed divine aid would arrive at the final moment. As cannons thundered against the walls, soldiers whispered the prophecy among themselves, clinging to the hope that heaven would intervene. Yet as days passed, no angel appeared, and despair deepened. Some later claimed the angel had turned away, for the sins of the people had grown too heavy. In that silence, faith collided with fate, leaving Constantinople vulnerable to its doom. Byzantine legends also spoke of the Golden Gate, the grand triumphal arch of Constantinople. Prophecy declared that the city would never fall so long as its gates stood unbroken. For centuries, emperors entered through it in glory, their victories crowned beneath its arches. Yet, as the empire weakened, the Golden Gate fell into disuse, locked and silent. To many, this was a bad omen, a sign the prophecies were nearing fulfillment. In 1453, the gate stood sealed, its stones cracked with age. Citizens saw this as a chilling metaphor. The once proud empire was no longer guarded by heaven's promise. The hidden history myths now felt real, as though the silent gate itself mourned the end of Byzantium. Another prophecy spoke of the Virgin Mary, protector of Constantinople. For centuries, Byzantines believed she shielded the city with her veil. Processions carried her icon along the walls whenever danger approached, and victories were often credited to her intervention. Yet by the 5th-10th century, some feared her protection had waned. Chroniclers recorded dreams of the Virgin, turning her face away, no longer interceding for the empire. When the Ottomans besieged the city, her icon was carried once more in desperate prayer. But storms scattered the procession, and lightning struck a tower, taken as a terrible omen. To the people, this meant the Divine Mother had withdrawn her hand, leaving Constantinople alone in its final trial. Whispers spread of a prophecy carved into the very walls, that the city would be taken when the stone lions no longer roared. These lions, symbols of Byzantine strength, guarded fountains and palaces. As Ottoman cannons thundered in 1453, the statues stood silent, eroded by centuries of wind and rain. To the frightened citizens, their silence was not of stone, but of fate. Chroniclers claimed the prophecy had come true. The guardians of Constantinople no longer spoke, their power drained. The hidden history myths, once dismissed as folklore, now echoed in every crack of mortar, in every roar of cannon fire. It was as though even the city's stone protectors had abandoned their post, leaving the empire exposed to its final siege. Another tale foretold that Constantinople would endure as long as water flowed in its aqueducts. The Valens aqueduct had carried life into the city for 1,000 years, a marvel of Roman and Byzantine engineering. But by the 5th-10th century, many channels lay in ruin, their arches crumbling. During the siege, supply lines failed, and thirst plagued the city. Citizens whispered that the prophecy was fulfilled. The veins of the city had dried, and so too would its life. What once symbolized eternal resilience now stood as a monument of loss. The hidden prophecies, so long ignored, seemed to awaken, reminding all that even the greatest walls could not stand if the lifeblood of the city ran dry. In the monasteries, prophecies written in faded manuscripts spoke of a king from the east who would one day end Constantinople. To some, this meant an emperor who would betray the city. To others, it meant a foreign ruler bearing divine mandate. When Sultan Mehmed II, young and ambitious, advanced with his armies, many whispered that he was the foretold monarch. His title, the Conqueror, seemed carved into destiny itself. The Byzantines, torn between faith and fear, searched the scriptures for answers. Was this man the shadow long foretold in Byzantine legends? The hidden history myths no longer belonged to dusty books. They walked in flesh and steel, in the march of Ottoman drums beneath the walls of the Queen of Cities. Another Constantinople prophecy told of a hidden emperor who would rise again in the city's final hour. He was said to be asleep beneath the walls, waiting for the moment to return and save Byzantium. As Ottoman banners appeared on the horizon, Desperate citizens clung to this legend. They believed that Constantine the 11th, the last emperor, might be transformed into this savior. Yet when the walls cracked and the gates fell, no hidden emperor arose. Chroniclers wrote that perhaps he had chosen to remain in the earth, leaving the empire to its fate. This unfulfilled prophecy deepened despair, reminding the faithful that not all myths come true, and not all legends bring deliverance. Astrologers, too, played their part in Byzantine legends. Stars, they said, foretold the fate of the empire. On the eve of the siege, astronomers noted strange alignments in the heavens, signs of doom written across the night sky. Chroniclers later recalled how comets blazed and constellations shifted unnaturally. To many, this was undeniable proof. The fall of Constantinople had been written among the stars themselves. The city, once thought eternal, was revealed to be as mortal as the men who ruled it. These hidden history myths, draped in celestial light, gave a cosmic scale to the tragedy, as if heaven itself had decreed that Byzantium must end. One prophecy warned that Constantinople would fall when fire rained from the sky. As Ottoman cannons roared, defenders swore the flames themselves seemed unnatural. Gunpowder smoke blackened the heavens, sparks showered upon churches, and embers drifted over wooden roofs. To many, this was the fire foretold, not from heaven, but from man's new weapons. The thunder of cannons echoed like divine judgment, shattering the illusion of eternal walls. Hidden history myths now took on iron and flame, embodied in the terrifying power of gunpowder. For citizens raised on the comfort of prophecy, the blazing fires confirmed their worst fear, that the city's end had come not only by steel, but by fate written long ago. A chilling prophecy claimed that Constantinople would fall during the reign of an emperor named Constantine, just as it had begun. The empire's founder was Constantine the Great, and its last ruler was Constantine the 11th. To many, this was too perfect to be coincidence. The cycle, they believed, was divinely ordained. The empire would begin and end with the same name. As the siege reached its climax, citizens whispered this prophecy with trembling lips. Some saw it as proof of inevitable fate, while others prayed that the emperor would be spared. But when Constantine the 11th died, sword in hand upon the walls, prophecy and reality merged. The Book of Byzantium had been closed with the same name that had opened it. Legends also told of a river of blood flowing through Constantinople's streets at its fall. When the final assault came, citizens reported torrents of crimson in the gutters, mingling with rain and tears. Chroniclers described streams running red, as though prophecy itself stained the marble avenues. The image struck terror into the hearts of survivors, who believed they were witnessing divine fulfillment. Hidden history myths became embodied in the blood of thousands, painting the Queen of Cities in sorrow. Though some exaggerated the tale, the symbolism endured. Constantinople did not fall quietly, but with rivers of blood, as foreseen in the darkest of Byzantine prophecies. Another Constantinople prophecy said that when the city fell, the great dome of Hagia Sophia would darken. On May 29, 1453, smoke filled the basilica as invaders broke through. Worshippers reported that candles extinguished themselves, and a darkness swept the sacred hall. Chroniclers later described how the icon of Christ above the altar was veiled by soot, as if heaven itself had turned away. To the faithful, this was the prophecy fulfilled. The spiritual heart of Byzantium dimmed in its final hour. Hagia Sophia, once radiant with divine light, became a shadow of loss. Myths became memory, written into the stone of the city's holiest place. Some legends claimed that during the fall, priests celebrating Mass in Hagia Sophia vanished into the walls. The prophecy said they would reappear only when Constantinople returned to Christian rule. As the Ottomans stormed inside, witnesses reported seeing clergy disappear into shadows, chalices still in hand. Whether truth or myth, the story endured as a secret hope, that one day the priests would emerge, and the sacred liturgy would continue where it left off. This hidden history myth became a seed of resilience, reminding the faithful that even in loss, a prophecy could preserve hope for rebirth. As the city fell, citizens remembered another prophecy, that Constantinople would endure for 1,120 years. From its founding in 330 AD to its fall in 1453, the empire had lasted almost exactly that span. Chroniclers marveled at the precision, calling it proof that fate governed history. This number, inscribed in legend, had come full circle. For the Byzantines, it was a cruel comfort. Their empire had lived out its appointed time, no more, no less. The Queen of Cities had not been taken by surprise. It had simply reached the end of its divine contract. The prophecy, fulfilled in years as well as in blood, closed the chapter on Byzantium. When the final assault ended, many survivors whispered that the prophecies had been right all along. The hidden history myths had guided their fears, shaping how they understood defeat. To them, Constantinople had not merely fallen to an army, but to fate. The Ottomans may have wielded cannons and steel, but destiny had already chosen the outcome. Even Mehmed the Conqueror seemed to acknowledge the weight of prophecy, riding through the ruined gates as though enacting a script written long before his birth. For the people of Byzantium, this was both tragedy and inevitability. Their city's end had always been foretold. Thus ended the tale of Constantinople, a city of prophecy, legend, and myth. For over a millennium, the Queen of Cities had stood as a fortress of faith, guarded not only by walls of stone, but by stories that bound its people to destiny. When the end came in 1453, it felt to many not as conquest, but as the unfolding of an ancient script. The Constantinople prophecies, whispered in monasteries and marketplaces alike, gave meaning to both glory and ruin. Today, they survive as haunting reminders of how myth and history intertwine, shaping the way we remember the fall of empires. In the shadows of Hagia Sophia, one can still feel the weight of those hidden legends, echoing across centuries.